Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to the Spicy
Brain Podcast.
That's for you, Taryn. Brought to you by Spicy Brain
Studios.
Oh, Studios.
We'll figure it out eventually.
We'll get there. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk all about your spicy brain and spicy brains in general, mine as well. We like to bring up a topic, usually something about, neurodiversity, but we've been focusing on ADHD recently, and we've been really focusing in on this book called
Driven to Distraction.
Driven to Distraction. I have a question for you about that, by the way, because you had a little tidbit from your history.
Yes.
We've never really talked about how you got diagnosed and all of that. So I want to talk a little bit about how you got diagnosed. But our topic today is about needless worrying. Or worrying, not needless. I shouldn't say that. It's worrying needlessly.
Oh, no, sometimes it's needless.
And endlessly.
Sometimes it's needless.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up a little topic about that. Then we'll talk about maybe some strategies that you found around that. Then we'll ask our community to kind of chime in and give us some thoughts. Okay. So we've been talking about this book, Driven to Distraction, for a while. So my first question for you is, you got diagnosed at what age with ADHD?
I think I was 15. It was my sophomore year in high school.
And it wasn't called ADHD then, right?
No, it was ADD.
Okay. So that's a change in name that's just happened over the years.
Well, I had a hyperactivity component. And
Yes.
So I think that there was the ADHD, but it was primarily people referred to it as ADD.
Yeah. So that's why I just was saying, because, people might be confused about that, and it's just actually changed names. But you don't have to be hyperactive to have hyperactive ADHD. So I think it's misnamed a little bit, or confusing. Sometimes the naming convention's confusing. But I want you to tell me, you told me you found the paperwork, like the original paperwork.
Yep.
And it told you something, which I think is hilarious, because this was not, I came to the book we're reading and talking through completely on my own.
Yes.
So what did that paperwork say?
Well, the paperwork gave a bunch of, it did a formal diagnosis, kind of went through all the different things that we would need for documentation purposes. And then it says, here are some recommendations. And one of them was to read the book Driven to Distraction.
That's so wild. I could not believe that when you told me. I was like, oh my gosh.
The craziest part, Michelle, is that I've had this paperwork for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I have used it multiple times in order to be able to prove, yes, I do have ADHD,
Sure.
or I need medication, and this is why. And they give me, I need paperwork. I have never actually read through the last section. Or if I did, I just ADHD'd it. I don't know. But as soon as I just saw it, I saw the words Driven to Distraction, and I was like, oh, that's the book that Michelle's reading. Like, I should have read that. Why didn't I read it?
I just think it's the funniest thing to give somebody with ADHD, though,
right?
like the job of reading this whole book.
Right?
Like, I just, not to say that people with ADHD don't read. I'm not saying that, but many people I know with ADHD, that's not, listen to the book. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. So we're doing this book in bite-sized chunks. It is super, super dense.
Is it?
I've learned so much. I've taken endless pages of notes, but you know me, I'm a nerd.
I love it.
And so I bring up these little tidbits along the way so that we can kind of try to digest it. And it's taken us 30 something episodes to digest this book. So anybody out there who's like, I don't know if I can read that whole thing, you could just listen to us or parts of this, and it might help. So, okay, I want to bring up something that you had mentioned. You said that the other day that you were super worried about finishing things, right? Or you're worried about the fact that you're going to have to go to jail because you are worried that was one of the podcasts. You're going to go to jail because you didn't follow the rules at the job or whatever it was.
That's right.
So can you walk us through when you're in this worry mode? Like, do you have any examples recently that you could, like, kind of walk us through?
Daisy, my pug,
Your pug, yeah.
she has been itching a lot more recently, and
Mm.
she is, like, scooting on her butt, and she's scratching her face, and, she just gets, like, super like, I if an animal could she is my spirit animal when it comes to ADHD, like, if I was a dog,
Yeah.
I would be Daisy. Like, we are kindred spirits.
It is so true.
Yeah.
It is so true,
'Cause
yes.
she gets fixated on her scratching, and then all of a sudden it's, like, her face, and then her butt, and then her back, and then she's, like, twirling around. She's like, "I am just in so much trouble." So, I've been worried about her, so, like, I usually have to express her anal glands.
Oh, wow, that's a whole lot of information.
It's fun. Uh,
Yeah.
I call it something that you don't like to hear, so, Michelle, earmuffs, cover your ears for a
Okay.
second. Okay, I call it
Okay.
juicing her butt, you guys.
Oh
I
God, I
juice
heard
her
it
butt.
already. Oh, it's just so gross. Okay.
Okay, so anyways, so you do that and it helps her because she's like a pug and can't do it naturally. Most dogs can do it naturally. She has trouble. The
Okay.
pug in general has trouble. So then I do this and then a week later she's still scooting, which, is not good. And her butt's
Yeah.
getting all raw and red. And so I'm worried
Oh,
about it. And so like,
poor little pug.
yeah, and so I start worrying about it. I'm like, okay, well, I hold on, I need to turn on my do not focus. Wait, do not disturb because it's like binging me. Okay, so I I'm worried about her butt.
You're right. Back to the butt.
Back to the butt, back to the red butt. And so I start stressing about it because I'm like, okay, well, do I have to do it again? Like, do I have to I start thinking like, well, what could it possibly be? And like, this is going to happen. And I go to like, this is happening quite a bit. And so I start getting worried. So then I think, okay, well, like, let me like look up and what can I put on her butt, like to make it less red? Like, is there something I can do? So hydrocortisone cream. Well, we have some of that. Okay, well, let me try that. Then I'm worried about it for days on days. And then I start realizing like, well, maybe it's because now is the time that she needs to get her injection. Like, cause she gets this
Her allergy shot.
yeah, she gets this allergy shot, but I
Yeah,
try to not do it too often because it's expensive, and
sure.
I try to wait until it's, like, a legit thing, so then I start worrying, like, "Well, is it the allergy shot or is it not?" And then I'm like, "Okay, well, I got the allergy shot. Okay, I can get that, but then I have to call and set up an appointment, but do I get the call and appointment? Like, how do I do it?" And then it's gonna be, like, a week before I can get in to see the vet tech, and then, and then I worry about, like, Daisy, and I'm just I just my brain is nonstop worry
And
mode.
then at some point, our mother said what?
Get the damn appointment. Get the damn appointment,
So
Megan.
the funniest thing is that I did not know you were gonna bring up this story. I had no idea.
Really?
Mom the other day was like, "I just told her to get the damn appointment." So, okay, so I want to dig into this a little bit. So, one of the things they said in the book, First Driven to Distraction, is that you tend like anyone with ADHD can, not always, right, but can tend to worry needlessly and endlessly. Okay, is the way they phrased it. And the other piece, the little caveat was looking ahead for dangers while not focusing on actual current dangers. So I'm envisioning you like in the car, worried about Daisy's butt,
Oh, yeah.
and then like maybe not realizing there's another car that just stopped in front of you or something. Like I mean I'm making that up, right? But
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering. Might that be something you've experienced? Like while worrying, like tripping over something or running into some or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, something I had to really learn about, and I struggle with, like, when smartphones became a thing and, like, having to learn not to, uh, use them in the car, which is a real
Mm.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be worried about something and I wanna go and look it up.
Oh.
Okay, actually, I'm gonna out myself. I was trying to be like, "Oh, look at me, like, I learned this back in the day." No. So, okay. Real example, it happened this week. I was
Okay.
worried about Daisy's butt.
Yeah.
And, like, oh, I can't believe this is real. Okay, so I I'm driving and I got worried, and so for a second, like, I was at the stop sign and I was, like, typing something really quick into like, I wasn't driving while doing it, but I was at the stop sign while doing it.
You were in a car that was
I
on.
was in a car that was on, and I should not have done this, and I don't do it often, but, like, I was
Yeah.
so worried about her butt. So I'm typing something in to try to, like, look it up so I don't forget, because that's the other thing is, like, I'll remember things while I'm in the
Yeah.
car, and then I forget.
Right.
So I'm at the stop sign, but there's, like, kind of like everyone's coming home, and I don't normally drive at that time of the day,
Sure.
and there was a lady at the other side of the, like, street, and it's a four-way stop, and so I wasn't paying attention, and she's trying to turn left, and I'm trying to go
Oh.
straight,
Oh.
and I actually, legitimately, though, I don't think that I was in the wrong, because typically people who are going straight are the ones who are in the right,
Yeah.
but she honked at me, and I don't
Oh.
know, maybe she was, maybe it was, like, her turn. It must have been her turn. I was not paying attention because I was
You
so
don't
worried
know.
about my
You
dog's
don't know if you were right or wrong because you weren't paying attention, that's the problem.
I know, and then I felt really bad, like, I just felt
Mm.
terrible, and I'm like, "Well, first of all, she's gonna go on to our the Facebook spouses group and chew me out because apparently that's a thing. They,
Oh,
like,
really?
Michelle, they call people out.
Ooh.
It's, like, such a drama-filled thing,
Oh
apparently,
my gosh.
and,
Okay.
like, they go on anonymously, they're like, "Oh, well, this person" if it was our poor neighbor, like, had it happen with her son, like,
Oh,
"This
no.
son did blah, blah this child did blah, 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 blah," and then she's just
Oh,
like,
no.
"That's my son, I'm so sorry," like, ugh, like,
Oh.
just give some grace to people, come on.
Is he the one with ADHD too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
So, legitimately, that
Yeah.
was a bad choice, and then I put it down and
Mhm.
but there's a weird itch in my brain that's like, I still wanna look, but
Yeah.
I had to stop and, like, say, "No, you're not gonna do this." And it's so interesting, Michelle, because I am now a new volunteer for the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Yay! Congratulations. That is so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I went to my first class, and
Mm.
I think we talked about this, about leaving, giving myself 15
Yeah,
minutes to
extra
get
time.
all the and I left at half an hour. I gave myself
Mm.
half an hour, not an hour.
Mm.
So I was already, like, in the car, like, I gotta get there on time because I didn't give myself that extra 15 minutes.
Yeah, that you really need.
Now that we're
Mm.
talking about this and I'm thinking about it, like, I felt my brain struggle to stay present.
Mm.
And it was interesting because, like, there's this weird itch that happens, like, that just this, like, addicted itch of, like, I have to I don't know, I
Mm.
was, like, doing something right up until I left, and so my brain was still in that mode, it wasn't prepared to get in a car and drive, and then I had that moment with that lady, and then I felt terrible. I was just like, "Oh my
Mm.
gosh," like, I was not being safe, I was not being prepared, like, I could have easily, it coulda so I started going to a different solution of, like, I could have hit her, and then what would have happened if I hit her, and then everyone in the
Mm.
neighborhood is recognizing that it's me, and then they know that I'm the bad spouse who hit something, like, I just am not,
Yeah.
and it by the time I got to the aquarium, my brain was, like, not nearly as itchy.
Hmm.
And so it kind of makes me think, like, before I'm gonna leave, I need 15 minutes just to, like, de-itch my brain at home. And then I
Hmm.
need whatever time it would take to drive somewhere. I need to double that amount of time for traffic. And then I need an extra 15 minutes to kinda get lost.
Okay, I'm gonna again dig in here a little bit because I started that process, but now you've said something that's making me really curious what it feels like, looks like, sounds like in your head when you say itchy.
Yeah.
Like, I get the concept of like there's an itch and you need to scratch it, right? In my
Mhm.
body, it's itchy. I remember, when I was pregnant, it was awful. I was itchy the whole pregnancy, the last 2/3 of it, and really it was maddening. They actually use techniques like that, right, for torture, for people,
Oh, I didn't
that
realize
they
that.
will, yeah, that they cause like all of this sort of histamine response in various
Mm,
ways, whether it's through actual bugs or whatever, but that these like itchy can kind of drive you crazy.
yeah.
And I remember feeling that way, like to the point of tears sometimes for me when I was pregnant. What what does itchy mean to you? And what's that when you're saying that, what's that feel like or look like?
The visual I'm having is, like, these fingers, in my brain. It's, like, right here on the right and the left side. I
Mm.
don't know where like, the top of my skull, maybe?
Yeah, your frontal cortex.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's like it's just like there's, like, this pulsing. It's like
Hmm.
it feels pressured, like, there's pressure there, but it's also, like, I don't know, it's like, I'm visualizing, like, myself, uh, like, a ping pong going back and forth.
Mm.
What am I doing right now, Michelle? Like, I'm
You're
doing
shaking your head to right and left,
yeah,
like kind of like looking back and forth with your eyes, almost like to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left,
and I'm
oscillating
and
almost.
yeah, it's like there's this energy that's ping-ponging in my head,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it has nowhere to go, and it wants
Mm.
to find a way out of my head, and I feel like there's gonna be if I just do something, if I do some task, then the ping pong will stop,
Hmm. And the
and
ping pong is the worry. Would you describe it that way, or is that different?
no, the ping pong is like I'm thinking about that experience when I was driving
Yeah.
because I had this thing happen. There's like a road called Farragut that like we just drive down, and so you have like to go down a hill in order to
Hmm.
get to the next stop sign. And so
Sure.
it from that stop sign where I almost hit the lady to the next stop sign, I was like, "Okay, calm yourself, Megan." But by the time
Mm.
I got to that next stop sign, I felt this like ping-ponging, this thing in my head that was like, I have to get whatever this is inside of me just out. Like it's just it's too chaotic. It
Yeah.
needs to like I need to have a lightning rod to pinpoint like this whatever this frenetic energy is, like it has to like something has to be the lightning rod.
Now, I mean, you had just almost gotten in an accident, so that to me would be like adrenaline,
Well,
like
it
that
wasn't
adrenaline
actually an
rush.
accident. I mean, like, it was that, she was just pissed at me because I went the wrong
D
time.
Sure,
Like, so
sure.
it wasn't adrenaline, it was more of just like
But you were shocked, right? Like, you were like, "Oh, I'm this happened, and there's a horn, and there's" I mean, it wasn't an accident, but it was, like, definitely jarring.
yeah. I mean, I've had close calls before where there was been a when I would say, like, that was adrenaline. This
This is
one
different.
yeah, this
This is
one
the worry about what just happened.
yes. The
And is
worry
that the
that, like
same as the butt worry, the Daisy butt worry, or is it similar but just less intense, or
huh,
is that different?
I think they're different. The okay, so the butt worry. I was like, "The butt worry? What are we" Oh, Daisy's butt. That one is like this little, like, eh, I don't okay, so there's a word that I'm not sure is correct, but, like,
Mhm.
the word is niggling, but
Mm.
I hate that word because it sounds too similar to other things, so, like,
Yeah.
I need a better word, but, like, it's like a little it's like the worry is,
Is it
uh
like a little ping? Like a little boop, boop, like just
yeah, it's like just this sort of person who's like, "Hey, hey, hey, guess what? This is what's happening. I'm worried. Like,
mm,
you need to"
mm,
it's very much like a
mm.
little, "I'm just gonna keep bothering you." I'm like a gnat. I'm like a little gnat flying around in your head, like, just, "Hey, hey, hey," and you're just, like, trying to grab the gnat, and you're like, "You little"
And it's like a tiny annoyance or a tiny itch, but it's
Yes.
not a big one.
Not a big one, but it's there, and it's really super freaking annoying, and everybody knows that one. It's like, "Ugh, I just can't stop." But then the worry I had with the lady was like this, "Oh my gosh." It was like, "What did you just do?" And you're like it's like a big giant rolling boulder of like this could have happened and like you're not
Mm,
paying attention and this could have happened and that could have happened and then your whole life
mm.
explodes and like what are you doing? And like it's I don't know, it's like the parent behind like your parent in the back of your mind, like just what are you doing? Like, what am I doing here, Michelle? I'm like,
You're, like, moving your hands in, like, kind of a rolling motion of, like, you're almost slow motion, it feels like.
yeah. It's like the gravity too of it. It's like
Mm.
there's this weight of like w- w- you should know better.
So that to me seems like a legitimate worry that anybody with ADHD might have
Yeah.
at some point, right? Like, I just did this thing. And I think all of us have done that where you do something and you're like, oh my God, you weren't thinking.
Yeah.
And you're like, but with somebody with ADHD, it's like, oh, I could have this happen every day of every second of my life, probably,
Yeah.
right? If I'm not, I've got to put systems in place to make sure this doesn't happen again
Yeah.
or go back to the systems I work
Yes.
used.
Cuz I
Yeah,
can't wait for self-driving cars. I like it's going to be
the best thing
awesome for
ever.
me.
So that's the whole idea though that you were like worried about Daisy while not looking at the real danger, present danger in front of you.
It's like legit. It's like
Legit
legit happened.
moment. Oh my
I
gosh,
outed
like just this
myself,
week.
so please be kind to me, you guys. I'm like, I'm saying things
No,
that
I
no one
mean,
wants to talk about, so
but I think anyone who's had a kid and been a new mom, you know that time when your brain's not functioning, they call it mom brain or whatever, but I
yeah,
think that is, I don't know it's exactly the same, but you're just so tired, you're not actually kind of making those connections, and I think it's completely relatable. I can't imagine anybody listening to this hasn't had that, if not you know, on a bike, if nothing else, right? Or something, right? You've been somewhere doing something and not realized you're about to hit somebody in front of you even,
yeah,
right? Like walking. Okay, so there's a real difference though when we dug in your brain in terms of what it feels like. So the needless worrying that sometimes distracts you to the point of something really big happening
yeah,
feels, you said, like a little gnat that you
mhm.
can't get away from.
Yeah, it's like a buzzing gnat that no matter how much I try to smack it and kill it,
Yeah.
I just can't seem to it's just too fast. It's too fast and it just flies away and escapes every time, and it's like I just can't hold on to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so then it just flies back in at some point. You don't have any control over it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Like, yeah, sometimes
mm,
it'll fly back in or sometimes I'll see it. So, I think a gnat actually is a great example because we have some little gnats right now. It's that time of
mhm,
year here, and, like, I'll do something, like, let's say it's there it's in the fruit, right? So I go to pick up some fruit, and then all of a sudden, these like, a bunch
gnats.
of gnats appear.
Mm,
But so, like, something I have done has caused those gnats to appear. But then
mm,
I'll be sitting here, I was working on my tomatoes, and a gnat just, like, comes out of nowhere. And I haven't done anything to provoke it, it's just coming to me.
interesting.
And so it's interesting what happens, like, if I do something to provoke the gnats, I tend to see a lot of them. Whereas
Mm,
sometimes a little gnat, like, 1 gnat will come and maybe 2, depending if I have, like, food or something, and so, like, but it really is a good analogy because,
mm,
uh, there are things like, let's say with Daisy, I take her out for a walk. Well, at some point, I'm watching things happening with her, and then, like, multiple gnats fly out because I'm seeing things because I've done something to change that, whereas she might just come up to me, I'm working, and I just see her in the back of my eye just kind of scooting, and then it's like, "Oh, it's a gnat that came to me."
mm.
And so then I start worrying about it, but I wasn't worrying about it before because there wasn't some sort of a stimulus to worry.
So interesting too when you say it, and when you said gnats coming at you, I was, like, thinking of Daisy with gnats, and I was like, "Oh, she means, like, the metaphorical gnats," but,
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
no, it's
Yeah.
totally fine. I was just like, "Huh, oh, right, right." Here's me not paying attention, right? But I was curious when you're saying that, was there anything that you do to help with that, that helps sort of eliminate the gnats or
Hmm.
mitigate them? You know what I mean? Make it so it's less intrusive?
Yeah. I think I'm getting better, but I still struggle with that. I think that's why I messaged mom because,
Mm.
when it comes to Daisy, you guys are helping out with like the financial part of it. And I knew we had already had some financial stuff over the this past month. And I'm like, I don't want to add one more financial thing
Mhm.
if I can do other things to keep Daisy from not having to go just yet, which is why for like a week I put hydrocortisone on her
Tried different
butt
things, yeah.
twice a day. That was
Okay.
fun. I did, and it got less red,
Yeah,
but then she started scratching her face and, like,
yeah.
so then I reached out for permission. Just go get the damn appointment, Megan. But, like, I needed that permission from her to go do this because I knew it was expensive, and I was like, "I this is what needs to
Mm,
happen." And you're right, Michelle, like, we were talking before offline, we were talking about how like, me personally, like, I don't always just say what it is I need. I tend to, like,
mm,
go around it. And so I was like, "Well,
mhm.
Daisy's itching." Like, "Oh, wait, hold on. I'll tell you exactly what I said."
Said to mom.
Said to mom. And, like, I have to get better at this because I'm just not good at it. So I said to her, "Daisy is licking her paw nonstop. I'm gonna have to take her in for another allergy shot." Oh, yeah, I didn't say, like, I should have just said, like, what I really wanted to say is, like, "Is that okay? Because it costs money." I didn't say that.
Right, right.
So she says, "Call tomorrow, she's miserable." And I'm like, "I will." But I said it, "I will." I accidentally put it in all caps, and I was like, "Sorry, I didn't mean to yell." And she says, "You sound committed." And then I was like, "Yes, ma'am, she definitely needs some help." But then that Monday, she's like, "Megan, did you call the vet?"
Mm.
So I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right." So I called the vet. And then I was like, "Yep, call the vet." But
So sometimes the worry can continue because your ADHD brain doesn't remember to do the thing that would help scratch it
yeah, well, and
or get rid of the gnats too.
yeah, but oh gosh, I'm trying to think, like, okay, if it wasn't Daisy, I will say that therapy helped a lot with
Mm,
dealing with these gnats because it's a running joke. I shouldn't say okay, not all therapists joke, you guys. Like, this is just my style. I like being able to kind of provide levity
yeah,
to my situations at time.
sure.
Um, but my therapist, if you were to ask her, "Does Megan worry?" She would just be like, "Yes." She's like, "Megan worries? No, I don't know what you're talking about." 'Cause, like, I just incessantly worry about things. Like, and a lot of it is that I'm worried about how other people are gonna perceive me. I'm
Mm,
worried about how I'll be perceived, like, I worry about just, like, sending emails or text messages. Like, I worry that people won't remember me. I've had so
mm,
many, times, like, where I forget that I'm memorable, and so I
yeah.
worry and I say, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but this is Megan," and they're like, "Megan, of course, how can I forget you?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I'm just not gonna assume," So, yeah, the worry and
No,
then
no, you're definitely one of the most memorable people that most people meet, I would
I
think.
mean,
I would
I
I would
know,
think
but, like,
so.
I don't understand I mean, I kinda understand why, but, like, I don't fully understand why. It
Well, you're just a ball of sunshine. I mean, I mean,
Oh,
you
it's
can
true.
also have hard times, right? But,
Yeah.
you're interesting, you're funny, you're very present. And that's one thing I think that I keep reminding friends of mine who maybe like their partner is ADHD, right? And I'm like, but they're the most present people you will ever meet, right? Like when they're with you,
Yeah.
usually, right? And so it's like, that's so lovely because a lot of times people aren't present. And, I'm not saying it's like you can't not you could, you don't get distracted with things, but the other thing is you can hyper focus, and you tend to hyper focus on people, at least you do.
That's true.
And when you're with them, and it's really fun because it's like, wow, this person's like really paying attention to me. They're really seeing me. And so, yeah, I would imagine that people would be shocked that you think that you're not memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is helping me realize I just had a total brain fart.
It's okay.
It's important though, but I gotta remember it.
It's okay. It's okay.
I
It'll come back or it won't. Either way. You know what our great grandmother used to say?
what?
It's probably a lie. When you forget something,
Oh,
she would go, "It's probably a lie."
oh, oh, oh.
Isn't that
Well,
funny?
that's hilarious. But I was actually thinking about
Yes.
how we're talking about like okay, words. I have a lot of visuals in my head.
Give us the visuals. Start there.
I have a TARDIS in my head.
Mm.
So, a time traveling machine because
Yeah.
in therapy I've learned that there's a thing called time traveling. And
Mm.
when you worry needlessly and incessantly, it's because you're traveling either to the future or to the past. You're just not in the
Mm.
present moment. And then I
Mm.
thought about the fact that we were talking about how I'm very present. It's like, yeah, if I'm present when I am present, I'm present. But then
Mhm.
if I'm not with people, then I'm always time traveling to other places. And
Mm.
so that's why I think therapy has been really helpful for me to recognize like, hey, I'm time traveling right now. I will actually say that like when I'm worrying about something, I'm
Mhm.
talking to you guys or talking to Brian or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's me time traveling, isn't it? And so it's being able to recognize that the worry is like being able to say what the worry is. Like, okay, that's just Megan, that's you worrying about the future
Mm.
helps a lot. It doesn't stop the gnat from being there, but it
Mhm.
does help me to kind of squash the gnat a little bit.
Mm.
I mean, unfortunately, another gnat always shows up, but I'm able to squash them sometimes now. I've
Which
got
is
better
amazing.
aim.
Yeah. And I do hear you say that to me, like, "Oh, that's me worrying about the past," or "That's me future forwarding," or something,
Future
right? Like,
forwarding. Mhm,
you'll
that's the
say that.
phrase.
I don't know what you say about the past, but you'll say, "I'm future forwarding right now," and I think that it's helpful. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things as you were kind of saying that, obviously that wasn't a lie. So our great grandmother probably wasn't
Sh
right about that. That old great grandmother's tale wasn't true.
Hey, she
But
probably was ADHD herself, so, it's
yeah, yeah.
hereditary.
I think it's funny though to be like, "Oh, I forgot. Oh, it was probably a lie."
I've
Like just
never heard that before, that's
isn't that
hysterical.
funny? Yeah, but I do think when you're thinking about this, like worrying, how can people in your life help you, or how do I help or not help, when you're in those moments? Because and I do want to like stop and listen to your answer for that. I do want to say one thing before I do that, which is I feel like sometimes with people who are ADHD in my life, and you're one of many, not the only, that sometimes I'll go down that time traveling. I'll get on the TARDIS, or is it in the TARDIS? I don't know, whatever
In
it
the
is.
TARDIS, yeah.
In the TARDIS, I don't even know what the reference is, but okay. Get
It's
in
from
the TARDIS.
Doctor Who, Michelle.
Who?
Doctor Who.
Oh, the show.
Yeah. The British show about a time traveling doctor,
Oh.
and he has a TARDIS that's in the shape of a British mail phone booth, and the joke is out like,
Oh.
"Oh, it's bigger on the inside," because it looks like a ti like
Okay.
a booth, and then you walk in, it's like a spacious, you know
Got it. Okay, so he's got a phone booth. I feel like sometimes I'm in the phone booth with you,
Yeah.
or in the phone booth with the person who's,
Yep.
and so
So
it,
you'd be my companion if we're following the
oh.
Doctor Who lore. Anybody who watches Doctor Who is gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is incredible," because I'm the doctor going in my
Yeah.
TARDIS, and then, like,
Yeah.
the doctor always has a companion, like an earthly
Oh.
companion,
Yeah.
and it's always, like, kind of new every couple of years, and so, like, you're acting as my companion, and you're going on
Companion.
the you're, like, basically and the companion has to, like, give up their entire life to go and travel in the TARDIS, so, like
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say companion, it sounds a little more like hostage. Sometimes it feels like a hostage situation in these
Yes.
moments. So, like, what is it that people who, I want to be helpful, but like, what is it that might help if you're future forwarding or you're in this going down this rabbit hole, so to speak?
Well,
Get the damn shot, Megan. Or is that
yeah.
it? Like, is that what it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably depends on the person. I know for me personally,
Right.
I a lot of times just someone validating like, "Hey, I'm noticing that you're having these feelings. Like I see that you're worried," and like just at least acknowledging the worry first so that I
Mm.
feel like I've been heard. Like just parroting back like, "Okay, Megan, you're worried about Daisy's butt." "Yes, I am. Thank you for validating my fears about my dog's ass." So,
Oh gosh.
uh,
It just never fails that we don't get very far away from these topics, is it? It's
I
just one
mean,
of those things, but it's all good,
those
it's all good. Okay.
parts are hilarious. Like, I don't understand why people think it's like I think it's so funny.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Uh, still, like, I'm always like an 8-year-old boy at heart.
Yeah.
So, I think so for me, at least validating what they're hearing. And
Yeah.
then if the conversation continues and I'm, still going on or I mention it multiple times, like, you're noticing a pattern, then I think it's important to say, "Hey, is it okay if I s can I give you an unsolicited observation?
Mm.
Can I make an observation? Like, I know you didn't
Mhm.
ask for this, and so, like, if I'm asking permission to make that observation, I have to be willing to give you that permission. I might not be in space to hear it at that point, but I might.
Yeah.
So, I think asking, like, is it okay if provide an observation?" And then just say, like, I'm seeing you like, be specific, like, "You're talking about Daisy's butt, and I'm seeing you when you're talking about it, you're future forwarding, like, you're time traveling, and it's not necessarily the moment." So, you know, seeing how they, reply to that, but then also, like, how can we what can we do to take care of this? Is it something you can take care of, or is it something
Mhm.
that's just a worry? So that you can, like, the whole idea about future forwarding is to understand, like, is there something actionable I can do about it, or is it
Mhm.
just a worry?
Yeah.
And
I
then
think that's so true, like, in life, right? I mean, with any partnership at all,
yeah,
I think that's such great advice. And I think one thing when you're saying that to me, I know I've had to go through my own therapy to be able to be in a place to do that.
yeah,
Right? And so what's interesting is I remember this was, I don't know, a couple months back, and you came into the session hot. I mean, you had like, I don't even know what was going on, but like you were like, oh my God. Blah, blah," and like you looked like a cartoon character. I mean, if we have that clip, if it was being recorded, it probably wasn't, but it looked like every single square of the screen would have had some part of your face in it within milliseconds because you were
yeah,
just that activated. And I just remember saying like, so I'm not sure what I'm experiencing right now, but something's going on. Can you walk me through it? And I think we did talk about it on that podcast, but it was interesting. But I was in a space to not be annoyed. I was grounded. I was ready. And I think years in the past, I probably would have gotten upset with you.
yeah,
It would have been annoying or it would have been whatever. I wouldn't have been able to observe it. And I
y
think being able to observe and give some feedback in a calm manner is actually really hard.
yeah, to
And I
not
still don't always do it well. So I'm not saying like, "Oh, I fixed myself," because that's not definitely not the case, and my son could tell you that, immediately, right? Like the people you're closest with, it's harder
yeah.
even too. But yeah, I think that was I've noticed I think I also had to be in the right headspace to be able to do it.
Yeah, it is if you're dealing with your own trauma and you haven't, like one has not done their work, it's really hard to provide space for the other person because you haven't
Yeah.
provided space for yourself. You haven't, like,
Mm,
put your own oxygen mask on, so you can't put others on.
yeah.
So yeah, it is, like, if you've got someone in your life who you really love and you care for and it's hard to deal with them, I think there's, like, a couple of questions. Is like, is this person worth keeping in your life if it's hard
Mhm.
for you? And if they are, then, like, part of it is, like, having to do the own work your own work and figure out, "Okay, well, how can I be more tolerant of this person? What can I do to help myself
Mhm.
so that I can provide space for myself so I can then have that extra space for them?"
It's so true, and I think when we talk about spaces, we're really talking about boundaries as well,
Yeah,
right? Like, and within that, to make that space, we have to have some boundaries around things.
yeah.
I am so curious what our community does around this. Like, kind of, do they feel that sense of needless worrying, or worrying needlessly? I don't know that it's needless. I think I'm saying it the wrong way, but it's like when you're worrying needlessly. Is it the
Yeah,
same?
I
I don't know, but, like, it's nonstop, it's gnats all the time, and and what that does then maybe also puts you in danger because you're not being fully present, and so one of the things you said is you needed 15 minutes to kinda get the itch scratched before you left. And I'm curious what other, I don't know that you've tried that yet in practice regularly, but I know one of the things that people talk about is meditation, and that seems to be really really hard for everybody to do, but specifically for people with ADHD. And I don't know that it's meditation exactly that you were talking about, but I think that concept of being meditative, like being in your own thoughts,
mm.
getting get making sure that you've put sort of to the side. You have the funniest look on your face, like I just made you eat Brussels sprouts or something, and you don't like Brussels sprouts. You're like meditation, ugh. But what I mean by it is, I do think there's a meditative quality to being worried. Like, you're saying the same things in your mind over and over and over again, oftentimes, right? When you
Mm,
worry,
yeah.
and so you could be saying like, "Oh, I'm grateful for this," or "I figured this out," or I've whatever, but it's not. It's like usually tends to be negative or something concerning, right?
Well, isn't that the whole thing about we talked about where we use negative emotions in order to sort of create
Hmm.
dopamine?
And to try to get organization, to
Yeah,
try to feel organized in your mind, you're organizing around the worry.
yeah.
And so I like, though, that what you said was, I need to spend 15 minutes to make sure I've put that worry to bed, or I've put that worry aside, or I've made a plan for that worry so that I'm able to be present. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if that's exactly what you meant. Actually, I should be more curious about that.
Well, I don't think that that's what I was thinking, but I do think that it is reminding me that when I do worry, one of the things that helps me with the whole idea of my future forwarding is the question of, like, is this fact or is this future
Mm,
forwarding?
mm.
Is it a fact that, going back to Daisy's butt, like, is it a fact that she is currently, in an incredible amount of pain and, showing all these symptoms, or is that just me future forwarding? And
Mm,
so in the beginning, it wasn't a fact. It was like me concerned, like, "Oh, it's gonna be coming up soon. Like, we're gonna have to worry about it soon." But, or whatever the concern is, like, is it fact or is it the
mm,
future?
mm,
And all you can deal with in the moment is just the facts. You can't prepare for that future. You can just deal with them now. And I think when it comes to that 15 minutes I was talking about, it's more about a transition
mm,
that because I have a Ferrari brain, I can speed through and work all the way up until the last minute
mhm,
and it's like basically putting the car in reverse while you're going 80 miles an hour.
Mm.
You know, you're going to do damage to the engine. You're going to do damage to the car. So like it's finding a way to transition from, okay, I have to allow myself, I don't know what that looks like just yet, but some kind of a transition period. And I know you're
Mhm.
saying meditation. Like meditation gets a bad rap, but for the ADHDers, like you know, sitting still and being in your thoughts is like the worst. It's like sounds like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Right, but, there's also, like, walking meditations, right?
Right.
Like
But
yeah.
like that's how.
I'm just thinking okay, so what I'm thinking of is they have those sort of, spirals that you walk through. I don't remember what they're called, but they're like usually like little rock gardens that'll be made and they make a spiral like kind of look at pathway that
Oh,
spirals into the center and then you spiral like you walk basically this spiral path into the center and then you walk the spiral path back and
that's
it's not
cool.
like you're trying to meditate quote unquote right
Yeah.
but you're just like maybe you're focusing on something like I'm going to, I just, the thing I'm going to focus on right now is just like, I'm going to be here in the present. And that's all you're
Uh,
saying to yourself. I'm going to be
uh,
here in the present. I'm going to be here, or you're like, as you're walking, you're just kind of noticing things, but you're feeling it. You're walking it. You're doing it. I don't know. It was just an idea, but I think this idea of having,
like I gotta make a rock garden. Shoot.
yeah,
Another
shoot,
task.
now I have
Another
to remember that.
project.
Well, I just an idea. I
No,
was
I
just trying
love
to
it.
think,
It's
but
just
like
like
this idea of transitioning, whatever that means for you, it doesn't have to be
I love the
anything
idea of a
formal.
rock garden, but like where do I go to find one?
Well, I mean, honestly, you could just like be in your house and
Just
like
doing
just walk
spinning
walk in a
spinning
circle.
circles like Daisy.
Not
I truly
spinning,
am
just
Daisy that way.
walking. You're just walking into it, right? Or you could be just
Well,
walking
I
and walking your neighborhood. I'm going to take a block walk up and back before I get in the car just to kind of clear my mind. Yes, I see you raising your like you don't see it, but she's got a back scratcher and it looks like a hand and she's raising it because I'm interrupting her. Yes, yes, your turn, Megan.
oh, I was thinking about the Hemi sync. Like I could
Mm,
use that like 5 minutes and just like put in my
yeah.
headphones and clear like just kind of clear my brain out. Like floss my head.
Flash your head. So HemiSync is a audio, right? That you play and it actually plays a little bit on the right side, a little bit on the left side in this kind of way that actually helps your brain waves kind of like resync.
Yeah,
So we tried that. I think we talked about that on another
we
podcast, but we should
did.
definitely put that in the notes on this one as well. It's super helpful. It helped you actually.
Yeah.
You had a moment where you kind of got overstimulated. I don't know. I call it like fritzed. You
Yeah.
just kind of fritzed in a lunch we were having. Some noises happened, and you went to the car and you put the hemi sync on, and in 5 minutes you had like taken a lot of the I think pressure that you talk about with your brain when you get overstimulated.
Yeah, I keep having
Yeah.
that visual of the cartoons, like, when they take, like, a cloth and they put it in one ear and they put it comes out the other ear and, like, it just kind of is cleaning their head.
Flossing your brain. on
I'll
that
try that.
note,
I'll
on
try
that
it, though.
note, I want to hear about that flossing next time for
Okay.
sure.
We can do it on
Okay.
the brain gains.
Yes, you've got this new little series going on that we'll have to talk about a little bit more.
Yeah.
All how you're helping your brain get buff,
Getting massively buff.
massive brain
Man,
gains
it's
with a
so
Z because that's like
brain
your brain's
gains.
getting strong.
That's right. Gains it on the brain. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Love you,
I
Megan.
love you too.
Bye.
Bye. That wraps up another episode of our Spicy Brain podcast. This series has us focusing more specifically on ADHD and the symptoms list that we got from the book Driven to Distraction. Yes, the same book that I did not read 20 some years ago. If you enjoyed the episode as much as my sister enjoyed that last fact, please share it with someone you would think would benefit from the conversation. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you are currently listening to so that you can get notified each week. Now, next week, we'll be talking about the lack of confidence in oneself. Now, I completely relate to this because my entire life, people have been doubting my abilities. So that, of course, has led to insecurities. There's so much to delve into with this topic. But until then, here's to a great end of the week. And remember, stay curious.